step and pull myself through and up into another world. If I squint in the dusty light up there, I cannot see the cobwebs or any of the details. My blurry eyes make the room gothic and mysterious. The unfinished attic comes to a peak in both corners, and the whole length of it is crossed with floor beams and rows of insulation. It looks like a church in miniature, a church for ghosts. As quickly as I can manage, I walk across the attic, 1 foot after another, balanced on the edges of the floor beams. I must be so careful. It is always a challenge for me with my numb feet that have only become more numb as the years have stretched on. My blocks of wood could step down wrong and push through insulation and sheetrock into the room below. Try explaining that one to Frank. No, I do not fall because I dare not. We do what we must, what is required for survival. Underneath the insulation, in a dark corner on the other side of the attic from the roof vent, is my secret place, a cubbyhole. In go all of my letters and postcards from Myrna's travels, from California, from Ireland, Istanbul, Hawaii. Not one of those letters ever mentioned Frank Falzone's name again. Oh yes, Blessed Virgin, I am a keeper of secrets from my husband. Myrna has been my secret all along, but now I have another. This diary. The problem with the diary is where to keep it. I cannot make the frequent trips up to the attic. It is too difficult and too much on my nerves. The only other space I can barely claim as mine is the kitchen. Frank has no interest whatsoever, as long as a warm plate and a beer are waiting for him when he gets home from the market. And forget about the girls. Angela has not lifted a finger to help cook or clean since she entered high school, and now that she's graduating, I have given up on a hopeless cause. Mary Claire would help, but she is careless and clumsy and just plain underfoot. Little Gina, my youngest, is 6 years old now, but I am not worried about her yet. I will save that problem for the future. For now, I shall take my chances sliding the diary between the sink and the stove behind my sheet pans. Nino was the one who gave me the diary. He started the renovation of the basement just a couple weeks ago. He and Frank spent a weekend talking about how to fix it up, and Nino came up with the plans. A wooden subfloor over the concrete foundation, a bedroom, a laundry room, a storage room, a workroom for Frank, a closet beneath the stairs. Lord knows we need the space. Now Nino comes every day. I hear him hammering down there. Nino Falzone, 25 years old, and he combs his black hair back slick like all the Italian boys do, and wears a St. Anthony medallion on a chain around his neck. He is muscled with rough hands, and you would think him crude until he opens his mouth to speak. Nino's voice is surprisingly soft. At first I thought he would be like Frank and all those other Falzone men who could act as if he were not even present in the room with them. Nino was different, though. I could tell that right off. His first day working alone down there, I brought him down a cold glass of lemonade. The basement was so pleasant, a sweet, cool relief from the summer heat and humidity. Nino was on his knees, marking out in tape the dimensions of a large closet under the staircase. He took the lemonade from my hands and smiled. Why, thank you, Bridget. That's very kind of you. I have to admit, I was a bit flustered. He has perfect white teeth and sawdust stuck to sweat on his clean-shaven cheek. I told him to call up any time if he might need something, and I was sincere about that. Thank you, Bridget, I will, he said. And then he paused just briefly and added, and I wouldn't mind a beer now and then, I mean, if you don't mind. He watched me for a moment, deciding to say what he said next, and I'm glad he did say it, truly, because it started everything between us. But can we keep that a secret from Big Frank? I don't think he'd want me drinking on the job. I replied right away. I did not even have to think a moment how to answer. That would not be a problem, I said. There was some quality to his eyes. Nino looked so much older than his actual years, big and bright brown with thick, long lashes. Myrna would call them soul eyes. Wordsworth would have written a poem about them. When Nino spoke, he scared me, and I excused myself and disappeared up the stairs. I bet you know all about keeping quiet around Big Frank, don't you? It was not meant to be mean or denigrating, I am sure. I could tell that just from his tone. But the way he knew, the way everyone in Frank's family must know how my meekness has defined my world. Even after all this time, after 20 long years, I cannot bear my own shame. It was hard to forget Nino was beneath me all day. The walls and floor of this house are so cheap and thin you hear everything. Not just his hammering and sawing, but even his coughing and the smell of his cigarettes wafted up. I am sure he could hear me talking with Gina and the sounds of the television. The awareness of Nino in the house like this was disturbing to me, and I did not know why. Oh, stop it, Bridget. You must be honest. If not anywhere else, here in this diary is where you must always tell the truth. Always. Of course you know why. It terrifies you why. Just Nino saying that to you about Frank is what shook you. The simple human fact of being seen by another. Someone outside myself looked at me with truth, but not with looked at me with truth, but not with unkindness. Here was someone, finally another adult, who maybe I can talk with. I have felt alone for so very long. At the supermarket that afternoon, I bought extra beer. The next day, Nino was happy to see me and apologized immediately for his comment. I didn't mean to butt my nose in where it doesn't belong, he said. His sole eyes and the set of his mouth were so sincere. Nonsense, I said. I had forgotten what you were talking about. I wanted to switch tracks immediately and not talk about it, so I did. Please show me, Nino. Show me where my laundry room will be. Nino nodded, agreeing silently to just let it go. I was so grateful. Nino said, "Why, certainly, madam, right through this door here," and that silly man pretended to open an invisible door in the middle of the basement and bowed like a doorman for me to enter. Nino became my friends over weeks of morning and afternoon visits. How nice to be able to say that. Friend. How nice that Nino was truly interested in how I thought about the basement should be laid out. Frank never asked me. He always made all the decisions about everything himself. Nino really listened to what I had to say and even made some small changes for me. Don't worry, I'll tell Big Frank I thought it up and that it's cheaper this way. He really doesn't understand carpentry at all. Nino winked, my co-conspirator, and suddenly the fact that Nino knew about how it was with Frank was all right as well. The first thing Nino did was take all the measurements and lay out where the studs for the walls were to be. He spent days drilling into concrete for the bolts. Once that was done, he got to work on building the subfloor. Such loud and messy work. Which brings us to yesterday. I will never forget yesterday. In the late morning, when I came down the stairs with Nino's beer, the way he looked, just sitting there, was a picture that burned itself into my mind forever. That man, just sitting amidst the sawdust and scrapped wood. It was a mess down there, utter chaos, and the fact of Nino bringing order to that world made me smile. In an instant, I was a girl again. It is unexplainable how I felt, full of life and love and poetry, a new awareness of myself that Nino had brought into the house with him. A line from a poem from so long ago came into my mind, and without thinking, I said it out loud. Then or now, poems are eternal. A house that lacks seemingly mistress and master, with doors that none but the wind ever closes, its floor all littered with glass and with plaster. It stands in a garden of old-fashioned roses. Nino did not say a thing to me for several moments. I was embarrassed, truly. Where had that line come from inside me unbidden? That old shame, that meekness was back, and I felt far too exposed. Oh, sweet Nino. He just sat there watching me, the look in his soul eyes unfathomable. I held out his can of beer to him. When he took it, his hand barely touched mine. I could see his hand touch my hand, but my fingers could not feel it. You are a deep one, Bridget Falzone, Nino said. He tilted back the beer and swallowed a long draught, not once taking those soul eyes off mine. I would never have known. Did you write that? I just laughed away the embarrassment. It was easy to do with Nino. Oh no, I said, that was Robert Frost. I used to know the whole poem, but I've not written since before my marriage. Nino nodded and sipped from the can, still watching me. Deep, he said. Then he smiled, and the whole world felt bright. That dingy basement never looked so good as it does with him down there. The next day, this very morning, Nino handed me a package. A present for Bridget, he proclaimed. A large rectangle, thick and heavy, wrapped up in blue wrapping paper with fireworks on it. In return for your lovely poem. He raised his beer I had brought up for him down for him up in a toast. Sorry about the wrapping paper. 4th of July stuff was all I could find this time of year. Nino held out the parcel, and I had to smile at all of it. Nino smiled back at me. So pretty. I have never said this before about a man, but he is beautiful. His square jaw and the dark line of his eyebrows, beautiful. The brightness and newness of the wrapping paper and how Nino's dirty hands held it so gently. Beautiful how important it was to him, his treasure for me. Beautiful. I unwrapped the paper so carefully, even though I knew I would have to throw it away so Frank did not see it. Inside the wrapping paper was this diary. To write your own sad, pretty poems, Nino said. He gently placed his hands over mine on the diary, this warm, pleasant pressure through all my numb. And don't you worry, Bridget. You keep my beer secret, and I'll keep your diary secret. I get the feeling Big Frank wouldn't understand poetry. Oh, my Nino, do you know what you have given me? After so long, something so old has returned. A place, my secret place, just for me. A place of my own, not dependent on husbands or children or duty. A place to find my voice. And my dear sweet man, the wrapping paper is perfect. A celebration. Fireworks for Independence Day.